Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the stars. His forearms crossed behind his back, and his purple skin gleamed under the bright lights. He was tall, even for his people, with sharp teeth that showed when he smiled. Today he was not smiling. "Admiral," called his second officer, running up with a data pad in his clawed hands. "We have strange readings from the old human system." Vextar turned his large head. His yellow eyes looked at the officer with annoyance. "The human system? That dead rock we destroyed 300 years ago?" "Yes, sir. But our sensors are picking up energy signals, big ones." The Admiral laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Impossible. We killed every last human during the Great War. Their planet is empty space dust now." He waved one of his hands. "It must be broken." "Equipment. When did we last check those old sensors?" 6 months ago, sir. They worked fine then." Vextar walked to his command chair. It was huge and made of black metal, fitting for the leader of the Empire's strongest fleet. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. All of them were Valerians. Like him, purple skin, yellow eyes, and 4 arms each. They had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. No one could challenge them. "Send a small scout ship," Vextar ordered. "Let them see what is making these false readings." Probably just some old human junk floating in space. Far away, in a system the Empire had forgotten, Jinha sat at his desk aboard the UTS Defiance. He was young for a tactical officer, only 25 years old. His black hair was cut short, and his dark eyes focused on the screen in front of him. The ship around him hummed with quiet power. "Sir?" Jinha called to his captain. "We have visitors coming." Captain Park walked over. She was older, maybe 50, with gray in her hair. "What kind of visitors? Valerian scout ship?" "Just one, but it looks like military grade." Jinha's fingers moved over his control panel. "They will be here in 2 hours." The captain nodded slowly. After all these years, they finally noticed. "US?" She pressed a button on the wall. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for contact protocols. This is not a drill." Around Earth, things had changed a lot since the Empire thought they had won. The planet was green and blue again, with big cities that reached up to the clouds. Huge space stations floated around it like metal moons. Ships came and went constantly, carrying people and goods between the planets. Mars was covered in domed cities now. Europa had underwater colonies beneath its ice. Titan had floating cities in its thick air. Humans had not just survived. They had grown stronger on Earth. In a building that reached above the clouds, Harin stood in front of a big window. She was only 30 years old, but she was already the youngest fleet admiral in human history. Her long black hair was tied back, and she wore the blue uniform of Earth's Space Navy. "Admiral," said her aide, walking into the room. "We just got word from the Defiance. The Valerians sent a scout." Harin did not turn from the window. Below her, she could see the busy streets of New Seoul. Flying cars moved between the tall buildings. People walked on bridges that connected. The towers, everything looked peaceful. "Just one ship?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Captain Park thinks it is just checking on old readings." Now Harin turned around. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. "They think we are still the same humans. They fought before. They think we are weak." The aide waited. Everyone knew that Admiral Harin was different. She was not just smart, she was something more. Some people said she could think faster than computers. Others said she could see the future. Jinha had heard rumors that she was connected to every human ship in space through some kind of mental link. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," Harin said. "Tell them the time has come. After 300 years of hiding, the galaxy will remember our name." Back on the Valerian command ship, the scout had returned. The pilot, a young Valerian named Krikstal, stood before Admiral Vextar. His face was pale and his hands shook. "Report," Vextar ordered. "Sir, the humans, they are still alive. Not just alive, there are billions of them. Their system is full of colonies and ships and ... Double Krikstal stopped, trying to find words. "And what?" Vextar S. voice was dangerous now. "And they saw me coming. From 3 light-years away. They knew I was there before I even entered their system. Vextar stood up from his chair. That is impossible. Human technology was primitive. We studied their weapons before we destroyed them. They had simple rockets and basic energy shields. Sir, Crystal said quietly, their ships ... They do not look like anything we have seen before. They are huge, bigger than our biggest warships. And they move ... wrong, like they are not following the normal laws of space. The Admiral walked to his window. Outside, his fleet waited, 300 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Each one could destroy a planet. Together, they had never lost a battle. Send a message to High Command, Vextar said finally. Tell them we have found a human colony that survived. Request permission to finish what we started 300 years ago. His communications officer, a female Valyrian with bright yellow markings on her arms, worked at her station. Sir, the message will take 6 hours. To reach command and 6 hours to get a reply. Fine, while we wait, prepare the fleet for combat. These humans have had time to build some new toys, but they are still just humans. We will show them what real power looks like. On Earth, Jinha watched his screens as the Valyrian fleet moved into attack formation. 300 ships, each. One bristling with weapons. It would have been terrifying if humans still felt fear the way they used to. Captain, he said, they are getting ready to attack. Captain Park smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Good, it has been too long since we had a real test of our abilities. She pressed another button. Fleet Command, this is the Defiance. The enemy is preparing to engage. Request permission to show them what humans have learned. Haran's voice came back immediately, as if she had been waiting for the call. Permission granted, Captain. Let them remember why they should have made sure we were really dead. The stage was set. The Valyrian Empire, rulers of the galaxy, were about to learn that some mistakes could never be undone. They had left humanity alive, thinking they had won. Now they would discover what humans could become when they had 300 years to prepare for revenge. The galaxy was about to remember why humans never stayed down when they were knocked down. They always got back up, and when they did, they hit back harder than anyone expected. Admiral Vextar stood in front of the huge view screen on his command bridge. Before him floated the most powerful war fleet in the galaxy, 300 Valyrian warships spread out like deadly flowers in the darkness of space. Each ship was a masterpiece of destruction, built to crack planets and end civilizations. Status report, he ordered, his forearms clasped behind his back. All ships ready for combat, Admiral, replied his weapons officer. Quantum disruptors charged, dimensional shields active. The fleet can begin attack in 30 minutes. Vextar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. 30 minutes to destroy whatever was left of the human race. It seemed almost too easy. And our target? Entering the human system now, sir? The view screen changed to show what lay ahead. Vextar expected to see a few small planets with maybe some basic colonies. What he saw instead made him pause. The Sol system was alive with activity. Mars glowed red with the lights of massive cities. Europa sparkled like a jewel, its ice surface covered with domed settlements. Titan had floating cities that drifted through its thick atmosphere like silver clouds. And Earth ... was beautiful. Green and blue and white, surrounded by enormous space stations that looked like metal rings around the planet. Ships moved between the worlds, not small transport vessels, but huge craft that dwarfed even Valyrian cruisers. How many humans are there? Vextar asked quietly. His intelligence officer checked his screens. Scans show approximately 50 billion, sir. Spread across 12 worlds and hundreds of space habitats? 50 billion. When the Empire had attacked 300 years ago, there had been only 8 billion humans on one planet. Now they had spread across their entire star system and multiplied beyond belief. Sir, called his communications officer, we are receiving a transmission from the humans. Put it on screen, Vextar ordered. The image that appeared showed a human male, maybe 30 years old. He had black hair and calm dark eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with no fancy decorations. Behind him, Vexstar could see what looked like a command center with other humans working at control stations. "I am Quan, speaking for Earth and all human worlds," the man said. His voice was steady and polite. "You have entered our space without permission. You have 30 minutes to turn around and leave. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. For a moment, the Valyrian bridge was completely silent. Then Admiral Vexstar began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, then grew into a roaring sound that echoed through the command center. Soon other crew members were laughing too. "Did you hear that?" Vexstar gasped between laughs. 30 minutes? They are giving us 30 minutes to run away." His tactical officer wiped tears from his eyes. "Sir, they only have about 50 ships in their entire fleet. We have 300. They are outnumbered 6-1. 50 ships against the first armada of the Valyrian Empire," Vexstar said, still grinning. "I almost feel sorry for them, almost." He opened a channel to all ships in his fleet. "All vessels, this is Admiral Vexstar. The humans have just threatened us. They want us to run away like scared children. What do you think of that?" Angry roars came from 300 ship captains. The Valyrians were a warrior race. No one threatened them and lived. "Exactly," Vexstar continued. "We will show these primitive humans what happens when you challenge the Empire. All ships, prepare for attack formation, Omega-7. We will end this in minutes." On the bridge around him, officers rushed to their stations. Warning lights flashed red as weapon systems powered up. The massive ships began to move, forming a battle formation that had conquered 1,000 worlds. "Sir," said the sensor officer, "the human ships are not running. They are actually moving toward us." "Good," Vexstar replied. "At least they will die with some courage." Far away on Earth, in the command center beneath New Sol, Harin watched the Valyrian fleet prepare for battle. Around her, dozens of human officers worked at stations that glowed with soft blue light. The technology looked nothing like what humans had used 300 years ago. "Admiral," said one of her staff, "all fleet elements report ready. Shall we engage?" Harin studied the tactical display floating in the air before her. It showed every Valyrian ship, their weapons, their positions, even the thoughts of their crews. Information flowed into her mind faster than any computer could process it. "Not yet," she said softly. "Let them come closer. Let them think they understand what they are facing." On the UTS Defiance, Jinha sat at his tactical station. The ship around him felt different now, not just metal and circuits, but something alive and thinking. He could sense the other human ships in the fleet, all connected, all working together like parts of one giant mind. "Jinha," Captain Park said, "what do you see?" Jinha closed his eyes and let his consciousness expand. Through the quantum networks that connected all human vessels, he could see the entire battle space as if he was floating above it. The Valyrian ships looked huge and dangerous, but to his enhanced perception, they seemed slow and clumsy. "They move like they are still fighting wars from 1,000 years ago," he said. "Linear formations, predictable tactics. They have not learned anything new, and us?" Jinha smiled. "We stopped being what they remember a long time ago." Back on the Valyrian flagship, Admiral Vexstar watched his fleet move into position. His ships formed a perfect attack wedge with the heaviest vessels in front and support craft behind. It was a formation that had never failed. "Range to human fleet?" he asked. 200,000 kilometers in closing, sir." "Excellent. At this distance, our quantum disruptors will tear through anything they have. What are human ships made of these days? Still metal and plastic?" His science officer checked his readings. "Sir, I am getting some unusual readings from their vessels. The hull materials, I cannot identify them. Probably some new alloy they developed while hiding." Vexstar said with a shrug. "No matter, our weapons can destroy any known substance." "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we just received another message from the humans." "Let me guess," Vexstar said. "They want to surrender now that they see our full strength?" "No. Sir, it is the same human as before. He just says 20 minutes left." The bridge crew laughed again. These humans really thought they could set a time limit on the Empire's most powerful fleet. Arrogant little creatures, Vexstar muttered. They will learn respect soon enough. All ships, final weapons check. I want to end this with the first strike. As his fleet prepared for battle, Admiral Vexstar felt the familiar rush of coming victory. 300 ships against 50. Advanced Valyrian technology against primitive human craft. It would be over before it really began. He had no idea that the 50 human ships were not really ships at all, but something far more dangerous. He did not know that each vessel contained technology that broke the basic laws of physics. He could not imagine that humans had spent 300 years not just building new weapons, but becoming new kinds of beings entirely. Most importantly, he did not understand that when Quan had said 30 minutes, he was not making a threat. He was giving the Valyrians time to say goodbye to their lives. The Empire was about to learn that some species did not stay defeated. Some species used their defeats to become something far more dangerous than they had ever been before. The countdown continued. 18 minutes left. The 30 minutes were up. Admiral Vexstar stood on his command bridge, watching the human fleet through his view screen. 50 ships floated in space ahead of his 300 warships. They looked strange, not like the metal boxes with engines that humans used to build. These vessels seemed to flow like liquid, their surfaces shifting and changing in the starlight. All ships report ready, Admiral, his weapons officer announced. Good, Vexstar replied. Open fire. Show these humans what real power looks like. 300 Valyrian warships opened fire at once. The space between the fleets lit up with deadly energy beams. Quantum disruptors, weapons that could crack planets in half, lanced toward the human vessels. Plasma cannons that burned hotter than stars sent streams of destruction across the void. It was the most powerful attack in galactic history. Enough firepower to destroy entire solar systems, all aimed at 50 human ships. On the UTS Defiance, Jinha watched the incoming weapons fire on his tactical screen. The energy readings were enormous. Each beam carried enough power to vaporize a mountain. In the old days, before humans had changed, this attack would have ended everything in seconds. Brace for impact, Captain Park ordered, but she was smiling. The Valyrian weapons struck the human ships, and nothing happened. The energy beams hit the flowing hulls of the human vessels and simply vanished. Not reflected, not absorbed, they just stopped existing. The plasma streams touched the ships and disappeared like water drops hitting an ocean. On the Valyrian flagship, every alarm started screaming at once. What happened? Vexstar roared. Why are they still there? His weapons officer stared at his controls in confusion. Sir, all weapons fired successfully. Direct hits on all targets. But the energy ... it just vanished. Impossible. Our quantum disruptors can destroy anything made of matter. Sir, the science officer called out, his voice shaking. I am reading something impossible. The human ships, they absorbed all our weapons fire and converted it into power for their own systems. Vexstar felt ice forming in his stomach. What do you mean, converted? They took our attack and turned it into energy for themselves. Sir, their power levels just increased by 3,000%. The Admiral stared at the screen. The human ships looked exactly the same as before, floating calmly in space. But now they seemed to pulse with inner light, as if something inside them had just woken up. Sir, the communications officer shouted. Incoming transmission from the humans. Quan's face appeared on screen again. He still looked calm, but now there was something else in his eyes. Something that made Vexstar's warrior instincts scream danger. You had 30 minutes to leave, Quan said quietly. You chose to stay, you chose to attack. Now you will see what humans have become, the transmission ended. On Earth, in her command center, Haran felt the moment of change wash through her. Consciousness. Every human ship, every space station, every orbital defense platform, all connected through quantum networks that made them think as one while keeping their individual humanity. Begin Phase 1, she said softly. Around the Sol system, 50 human ships began to change. They unfolded. That was the only word that could describe it. The vessels that had looked like simple warships suddenly opened up like flowers made of liquid metal and crystallized light. They grew larger, then larger still, reality bending around them as they revealed what they really were. Jinha felt his consciousness expand as the Defiance transformed around him. The ship was not just his workplace, it was part of him now, connected to his mind and soul through technologies that went beyond normal science. He could feel space and time flowing through the vessel's hull like blood through veins. "Target acquired," he reported, though he was not really speaking to Captain Park anymore. His words went directly into the quantum network that connected all human forces. "Enemy fleet mapped and analyzed. Their weapons?" Haren asked from 3 light-years away, her thoughts arriving instantly. "Primitive," Jinha replied. 300 years behind our current level. They still think in terms of matter and energy. They do not understand what we have become. Admiral Vexstar watched in growing horror as the human ships continued to unfold. They were huge now, each one larger than his flagship. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that they were moving wrong. The human vessels did not accelerate like normal ships. They did not turn by firing thrusters. They simply appeared in new positions, as if they had decided that the space between where they were and where they wanted to be did not matter anymore. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "they are not following physics. Ships cannot just teleport. All vessels, evasive maneuvers," Vexstar ordered. "Scatter formation. Do not let them target you all at once." His 300 ships began to spread out, each captain trying to put distance between himself and the impossible human fleet. But as they moved, the Valyrians realized something terrible. The humans were not aiming at where the Valyrian ships were. They were aiming at where the ships would be, and where they had been, and where they might go in the future. "Sir, the science officer said," his voice barely audible, "they are attacking us in multiple timelines simultaneously." Jinha watched the tactical display with calm satisfaction. The Valyrian ships looked like they were moving fast, but to his enhanced perception, they crawled like insects through honey. Human consciousness, boosted by quantum processing networks, could think thousands of times faster than any biological brain. "Lock on targets," he said. Around him, the Defiance's weapon systems came online. But these were not weapons in any normal sense. They were tools for editing reality itself. Captain Park, now more than human but still recognizably herself, studied the enemy fleet. "Jinha, how long do you estimate this engagement will last?" Jinha calculated probabilities, analyzing millions of possible futures in the space between. "Heartbeats, 30 seconds, Captain, maybe less." "Show them why we survived," Captain Park ordered. The human ships opened fire. But they were not firing energy beams or projectiles. They were firing pure impossibility, weapons that rewrote the laws of physics in small areas of space. Where these weapons struck, Valyrian ships did not explode. They simply stopped being real. The first 10 Valyrian warships vanished in the first second. Not destroyed, erased. The quantum structure that held their atoms together was edited out of existence, leaving nothing behind but empty space that even light forgot had ever contained anything. "Shields!" Vexstar screamed, "All power to defensive systems." His crew obeyed, pouring every bit of energy they had into their dimensional shields, barriers that existed in folded space-time, impossible to penetrate with normal weapons. The human weapons ignored the shields completely. They did not try to break through the barriers. They simply made the barriers forget that they had ever existed in the first place. 20 more Valyrian ships ceased to exist. "Sir," the communications officer shouted over the alarms, "Captain Ziegther is requesting permission to surrender." "Granted," Vexstar replied immediately. "All ships stand down. Broadcast surrender on all frequencies." But the human weapons kept firing. Another 30 ships vanished from reality. "Why are they not stopping?" Vexstar demanded. On the Defiance, Jinha heard the Valyrian surrender request through the ship's sensors. He looked at Captain Park with a question in his eyes. They had 30 minutes, she said simply. The time for surrender was before they chose to attack. Jinha nodded and continued targeting. The battle was not about winning anymore. It was about teaching the galaxy a lesson that would never be forgotten. 60 seconds had passed since. The engagement began. Of the Empire's first armada, only half remained. The most powerful war fleet in galactic history was being erased from existence by weapons that operated outside the normal laws of reality. Admiral Vextar finally understood. What he was facing? These were not the same humans his people had fought 300 years ago. These beings had taken everything that made humans dangerous, their stubbornness, their refusal to accept defeat, their ability to adapt, and had evolved it beyond all recognition. The humans had not just survived. They had become something. That made nightmares seem pleasant. The battle was almost over, but the real war was just beginning. 10 seconds. Admiral Vextar watched his fleet die around him. Ship after ship simply stopped existing, erased by weapons that should not be possible. The space around him was filled with the screams of his captains calling for help that would never come. Sir? His weapons officer shouted over the alarms. Our quantum disruptors are useless. Our plasma cannons cannot even touch them. Then use the planet crackers, Vextar ordered desperately. Full power, everything we have. The remaining Valyrian ships fired their most powerful weapons. These were not normal guns. They were tools meant to destroy entire worlds. Energy. Beams that could split moons in half lanced toward the human fleet. Jinha watched the attack coming on his tactical screen. The energy readings were beyond measurement, enough power to boil away Earth's oceans. In the old days, this would have been the end of everything. Interesting, he said calmly. They are trying to give us more power. The planet-killing beams struck the human ships and vanished, just like all the other weapons, but this time something different happened. The human vessels began to glow brighter, their hull surfaces rippling with captured energy. Thank you, Captain Park said, her voice carrying across all frequencies so every Valyrian could hear. We needed that extra power for what comes next. 15 seconds. On Earth, Harren felt the battle through every fiber of her being. She was not just watching the fight. She was the fight, connected to every human ship and weapon through quantum networks that made her consciousness vast beyond imagining. But she was still human. Still, the woman who had grown up on the rebuilt Earth, who had studied the old histories of her people's first war with the Empire. Still someone who remembered that humans fought not just to win, but to protect what they loved. Jinha, she said, her thoughts reaching him instantly across the light years. Show them all of it. Show them what 300 years of human evolution looks like. Yes, Admiral, Jinha replied. Around him, the Defiance began to change again. The human ships had been holding back. What the Valyrians had seen so far was just the beginning. Now, the real power awakened. The 50 human vessels split apart, each one dividing into 10, then 20, then 100 smaller craft. But these were not normal ships splitting up. Each new vessel was a complete copy of the original, existing in the same space at the same time through folded dimensions that hurt to look at. Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical screen in disbelief. How many ships do they have now? Sir, his tactical officer whispered, the computer says. 5,000, all in the same location. All real, 20 seconds. The human fleet, now a swarm of impossible vessels, began to move. They did not fly through space like normal ships. They flowed like liquid lightning, appearing and disappearing, attacking from directions that did not exist. Quan's voice came over the communications again, calm and polite as always. We tried to warn you. Humans do not stay defeated. We learn, we adapt, we become something new. Jinha targeted another group of Valyrian ships. His consciousness reached out through the quantum networks, touching the minds of every other human tactical officer in the fleet. Together they calculated the perfect attack. not just hitting where the enemy was, but where they would be in every possible future. Fire, he said simply. 50 Valyrian warships ceased to exist simultaneously. They did not explode. They did not break apart. They simply stopped. The space where they had been became empty, as if it had never contained anything at all. "Sir!" the science officer on Vextar's ship screamed. "They are not just destroying our ships. They are erasing them from history." It was true. The human weapons were not just killing in the present moment. They were reaching back through time and making it so the destroyed ships had never been built at all. Valyrian families would return home to find empty spaces where their sons and daughters had been, with no memory of why they felt sad. 25 seconds. Admiral Vextar tried everything he could think of. He ordered his ships to retreat at maximum speed. The human vessels followed them effortlessly, moving faster than light without using any engines at all. He ordered his fleet to scatter in all directions. The humans attacked them all at once, somehow being in thousands of places simultaneously. He tried to call for reinforcements from other Valyrian fleets, but when he opened communications, he discovered something terrifying. The humans had already found every other Imperial fleet in the galaxy. All of them were under attack at the same time. "How?" he whispered. "How are they everywhere at once?" Jinha could have answered him. The humans had learned to think outside the normal limits of space and time. When you could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, distance became meaningless. Every human ship could be anywhere it needed to be, whenever it needed to be there. But Jinha was too busy fighting to explain. His enhanced consciousness was coordinated with thousands of other tactical minds, all working together while remaining perfectly individual. They moved like a school of fish, like a flock of birds, like something alive and thinking and utterly unstoppable. 28 seconds. Only 50 Valyrian ships remained out of 300. They huddled together in a desperate defensive formation, pouring all their power into shields that did not work against weapons that ignored the rules of reality. "Sir?" Vextar-S communications officer said quietly. "I am receiving surrender. Offers from ... everyone. Every ship captain is begging for mercy." Vextar looked at his tactical display. His mighty First Armada, the terror of the galaxy, had been reduced to a handful of scared survivors in less than half a minute. "Do it," he said. "Broadcast full surrender on all frequencies. Tell them we yield completely." But the human attacks did not stop. Another 10 ships vanished. "Why?" Vextar shouted at the screen. "We surrender. We give up." Captain Park's voice came back, still calm but with something cold underneath. "You had 30 minutes to surrender. You chose to attack instead. You chose to try to destroy us. Now you will learn what happens when you threaten humanity." 29 seconds. Harin, connected to the battle through quantum consciousness, made a decision that would echo through galactic history. She could have destroyed every Valyrian ship in the system. She could have erased the entire Imperial fleet from existence. Instead, she chose mercy, not forgiveness, mercy. There was a difference. "Cease fire," she ordered. "Leave one ship intact." The human weapons stopped. In the sudden silence, only Admiral Vextar-S flagship remained. Around it floated the empty space where 300 of the galaxy's most powerful warships had once existed. 30 seconds exactly. The battle was over. Jinha leaned back in his chair, feeling the adrenaline of enhanced consciousness slowly fade. Around him, the Defiance began to fold back into its normal configuration, the extra-dimensional aspects of the ship tucking themselves away like wings folding against a bird's body. "Casualties?" Captain Park asked. "None," Jinha reported. Not a single human ship was even scratched. On his screen, Admiral Vextar-S flagship hung alone in space, surrounded by the wreckage of his shattered pride. The most powerful war fleet in galactic history had been destroyed in 30 seconds by 50 human ships that barely qualified as a patrol force. "Open a channel to the survivor," Captain Park ordered. Vextar-S face appeared on screen. The proud Valyrian admiral looked like he had aged 100 years in 30 seconds. His yellow eyes were wide with shock, his purple skin pale with fear. You are not the same species we fought before, he whispered. No, Captain Park agreed. We are not. We are what humans become when you give us 300 years to remember why we do not stay defeated. She leaned forward slightly. Go home, Admiral. Tell your empire what you have seen. Tell them that humanity has returned to the galaxy. Tell them that we remember every world they destroyed, every species they enslaved, every life they ended. Her voice grew quieter, more dangerous. And tell them that this was just a small taste of what we have become. The transmission ended. Admiral Vextar's ship began to limp away from the Sol system, carrying the news that would shake the Empire. To its foundations, the 32nd War was over. But for the Valyrian Empire, the real nightmare was just beginning. 3 days later, Admiral Vextar's damaged ship limped into the Valyrian home system. The proud vessel that had once led 300 warships now traveled alone, its hull scarred and its crew broken in spirit. The Imperial capital was a sight to see, a massive space station the size of a small moon, surrounded by thousands of defensive platforms and patrol ships. It had never been attacked in 3,000 years. It was the symbol of Valyrian power across the galaxy. Imperial Command, this is Admiral Vextar requesting immediate emergency docking, he transmitted. The response came quickly. Admiral, you are 3 days late. Where is your fleet? Vextar closed his eyes. Gone, all of them. I need to speak. To the High Council immediately. Within hours, Vextar stood before the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy. The High Council of the Valyrian Empire sat in a great circular chamber, their purple forms draped in robes of gold and silver. These were the rulers who had decided the fate of 1,000 worlds. Admiral, spoke High Councilor Zexron, the eldest of them all, you return with claims that your entire fleet was destroyed by extinct humans. Explain yourself. Vextar activated a holographic projector. The battle recordings began to play, showing the impossible sight of human ships, that bent reality and weapons that erased matter from existence. The Council watched in silence as 300 Valyrian warships vanished in 30 seconds. This is fake, declared Councillor Vregtel. Computer-generated lies to hide your failure. I wish it were, Vextar replied quietly. But our science teams have confirmed every detail. The humans are not just alive, they have become something beyond our understanding. High Councilor Zexron studied the recordings with growing concern. How many human ships attacked you? 50, sir. 50 ships destroyed our entire First Armada. The chamber fell silent. 50 ships against 300. It should have been impossible. What do they want? Asked Councillor Morden. I do not know, Vextar admitted. But they gave me a message to deliver. Before he could continue, every screen in the chamber activated at once. A holographic figure appeared, a young human woman with long black hair and calm, intelligent eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with Admiral's markings. I am Harin, speaking for all of humanity, she said in perfect Valyrian language. You tried to erase us from history. Instead, you taught us that mercy is a luxury the galaxy cannot afford. The High Council jumped to their feet. How did you get into our secure systems? Zexron demanded. Your security is 300 years behind our current capabilities, Harin replied calmly. We have been watching your empire for quite some time. We know about every fleet, every weapon, every plan you have ever made. She paused, letting that sink in. You gave us one warning 3 centuries ago, surrender or die. We gave you the same choice 3 days ago. You chose poorly. Counselor, Vregtel snarled, showing his sharp teeth. You cannot threaten the Empire. We have 10,000 warships across the galaxy. Had, Harin corrected. You had 10,000 warships. As of this moment, you have approximately 3,000. The rest encountered our forces and chose to resist. The council members looked at each other in growing panic. Impossible, Morden whispered. Our fleets are spread across 100 star systems. You cannot attack them all at once. Harin smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. We do not think the way you do. Distance and time are suggestions to us now, not barriers. When we decided to act, we acted everywhere simultaneously. She gestured, and new holographic displays appeared around the chamber. They showed battle scenes from across the galaxy, Valyrian fleets being destroyed in seconds by impossible human weapons. The 7th Fleet at Rigel gone. The 4th Armada at Vega erased. Your reserve forces at Altair, they surrendered, so we let them live. Your choice of resistance or surrender determined whether your people saw another sunrise? High Counselor Zexrin felt his legs give out. He collapsed into his chair, staring at the destruction of his empire's military might. What do you want from us? Nothing, Harin replied simply. We do not want to rule you. We do not want your planets or your resources. We want you to understand something very important. The holographic displays changed, showing something new. Across the galaxy, alien species that had been enslaved by the Empire for centuries were suddenly free. Their chains were broken, their prison worlds opened, their oppressors simply gone. For 3,000 years you ruled through fear, Harin continued. You made the galaxy believe that resistance was futile. You taught entire civilizations that freedom was impossible. Today we have proven you wrong. On the main display, scenes of celebration played out across 100 worlds. Species that had never hoped to see the sky again were dancing in the streets of their liberated cities. You are finished as a galactic power, Harin said matter-of-factly. Your fleets are gone, your slave worlds are free. Your empire is nothing but empty space and bad memories now. Counselor Vrektel found his voice. You cannot just destroy an entire civilization. There are billions of Valyrians on thousands of worlds. We are not destroying your civilization, Harin replied. We are simply removing your ability to destroy others. Your worlds are untouched. Your people are unharmed. You can live in peace. Now, just like everyone else. She leaned forward slightly. But if you ever try to rebuild your empire, if you ever again decide that other species exist for your pleasure, we will remember. And next time, we will not be so merciful. On Earth, Jinha sat in his quarters aboard the Defiance, looking out at the stars. Through his enhanced consciousness, he could feel the waves of change spreading across the galaxy. Freed slaves taking their first breaths of liberty. Oppressed worlds seeing their oppressors flee in terror. Hope returning to places that had forgotten what hope felt like. It is beautiful, said Captain Park, joining him at the window. All those species, finally free to be what they were meant to be. Jinha nodded. The galaxy is remembering what it was like before the Empire. It will take time, but they will rebuild. And us? Park asked. What do humans do now? Jinha smiled. What we have always done, we help, we protect. We make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. Across the galaxy, Quan was already at work. The diplomatic officer who had delivered humanity's ultimatum was now coordinating with thousands of alien species. Trade agreements were being signed. Defense pacts were being negotiated. The foundations of a new galactic civilization were being laid, one based on cooperation instead of conquest. In the Valyrian capital, the High Council watched their empire crumble in real time. Rebellions were breaking out on worlds that had been loyal for centuries. Their governors were fleeing in panic. Their tax collectors were finding empty buildings where once mighty bureaucracies had operated. How long? High Counselor Zexrin asked quietly. How long did it take you to plan this? Harin's hologram considered the question. 300 years. From the moment you attacked our world, we began preparing for this day. Every year you thought we were dead, we grew stronger. Every decade you forgot about us, we evolved further. She gestured to the displays showing human ships appearing throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors but as liberators. You made one critical mistake. You assumed that defeating humans once meant we would stay defeated. You forgot that humans are the species that learns from failure. The transmission began to fade, but Harin's final words echoed through the chamber. The galaxy will never forget our name again. Not because we forced them to remember, but because we gave them a reason to be grateful that we survived. 6. Months later, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The Valyrian Empire existed only in history books. Free trade flowed between thousands of worlds. Species that had been enemies for millennia were learning to work together. Art, music, and literature flourished as cultures that had been suppressed for centuries found their voices again. On Earth, a small human child played in the gardens of New Sol, watched over by her parents and protected by ships that could rewrite reality itself. Above her, vessels from 1,000 worlds traveled safely through human-protected space lanes. The child did not know that her species had once been nearly destroyed. She did not understand that the peaceful galaxy she was growing up in had been paid for with 3 centuries of hiding, learning, and evolution. All she knew was that the stars were beautiful and they belonged to everyone. The Empire had sent their best to destroy humanity. Humanity had responded by giving the galaxy something it had never had before: hope for a future where strength served protection, not conquest. The name human would never be forgotten again. Not because people feared it, but because when they said it, they remembered the day freedom returned to the stars. And in the depths of space, human ships continued their eternal patrol, making sure that day would never end.